Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making an impact in our community and around the globe. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that's very near and dear to our family, and that's adoption. According to the Child Welfare Information Gateway from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the average cost of adopting a child domestically in the U.S. ranges between $20,000 to $45,000, but you can expect to pay double or even triple of that if you work with a private adoption agency or international adoption organization. Working to help make adoption more feasible for all families is founder and president of helpusadopt.org, Becky Fawcett, who's joining us today. Becky, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Andrew, I'm so happy to be here and to see you face to face finally.
Absolutely. I feel like I know so much about you just through social media.
I know.
Yeah. Before we dive into helpusadopt.org, give listeners an idea for your personal and professional background leading you to creating this organization.
Yeah, so my career, I have to say, is pretty interesting because I'm not someone who grew up dreaming of starting a nonprofit, yet I've started one that has inspired global change and is actually pretty successful. So it's very interesting. My background is really in magazines, in advertising and marketing, and then in public relations. I had my own PR firm for 10 years prior to starting Help Us Adopt. And as I say to people, it became very clear that every job I ever had led me to the knowledge and the skill set to start Help Us Adopt, because the minute I realized I wanted to find an adoption grant program to take on as a pro bono PR client after I adopted my first child, because I realized it took every penny we had. I wanted to give back to help other people. I had no more money left, and I knew I wanted to adopt a sibling down the road. So I had to start saving immediately. And what I found when I started doing this research 17 years ago was that the adoption grant programs that existed believed a family was a white woman married to a white man worshiping a Christian God and adopting a certain way, period. Come on, we're better than that. We are so much better than that as a community. And I always joke with people, like, I happen to be a white woman married to a white man, but I'm not very religious. It's just not my thing. And I adopted domestic newborn infants, which was not how most of these grant organizations believed adoption should happen. And they wouldn't have helped me if I'd needed help. Well, that made me mad. And what also made me mad was that there were so many groups of individuals and descriptors of families that were being ignored. All very eager to adopt when you started to open your eyes. And if you deny these people help, what that means is more children don't come home. That's all there is. That's all it means. Not only are you being discriminatory, you're hurting the kids who need to come home. And so that was what created Help Us Adopt. And the minute I knew what I needed to do, it just sort of came out of me. You were joking earlier that it's my third child. It really is. It is a labor of love, seriously. And I just feel like I'm the luckiest person to do what I do every day.
Something that we were talking about before we were even recording was just that how adoptive families have this sort of like unspoken familiarity with each other because of the experiences, even if someone adopts through foster care or internationally or domestically, or they spent $20,000 or the other person spent $80,000. There's still commonalities through that journey that really tie one another with each other. My wife and I adopted our twins, Jackson and Emily, in January 2021. And then later that year, we welcomed our third child, Benjamin. But for anyone keeping track, that's 3 kids in 11 months, which is a lot. But, I love that when we were looking through the adoption process and really sort of taking it in and trying to understand the different terms and what was going on and really what the cost was going to be, it was so overwhelming. And then looking at these profiles of these families just yearning to adopt and what they were going through advertising and social media profiles and books and campaigns to really say, hey, birth parents, I'm out here, I want to adopt, or what the pain that they had suffered to get to that point, that for many just see on the surface, that's the starting point. Oh, you decided to adopt. That's great. There's so much before that that goes through
It,
that. Whew.
it's such an important point you raise. And that's why I talk to my children about all of this stuff about adoption, because if there are preconceived notions about it, like they're 13 and 17 now, I want them to hear these preconceived notions from me. I want them to hear what people are saying out there from me. So when they do hear it as adopted people, they can say, you know what, my mom told me about this. You're wrong. You can't speak for me. You can't speak for me. You can't speak for my mother. You can't speak for my dad. You can't, you can speak for yourself, but you can't speak for other people. And it happens a lot in the adoption community.
It does. And I love the fact that you're working to resolve some of these misconceptions through helpusadopt.org, especially the ones when it comes to the criteria for grants to adopt. My wife and I are white male and female Christians that really fit a lot of those boxes. But when we saw the discriminatory practices for grant recipients, we were like mouths open. And so to have an organization like yours that supports all families and being able to grow their family through adoption and experience what it is to grow their family, I think that's beautiful. And you have this these grant cycles. Talk about the grant awards you offer, the deadlines throughout the year, and what that entails.
I don't think it determines whether or not you should get help adopting your child. And that help we offer is tremendous. So last year we gave $1 million away, which, when I started this organization 17 years ago, we gave $100,000 away a year.
Which is still huge.
Which is still
crazy. Yeah.
It's still, incredible. And I used to dream of the day, someday we'll give $1 million away. And it was last year, and it really was a dream come true. I mean, that's a big nut. That's a really big nut to just give away. That means I've already covered my expenses and I don't need this money for Help Us Adopt. I can use it to help other people. And the amazing news was I kept saying to my team, we're going to be stuck, I think, at $1 million for a long time, but that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's such an impact on the world. And, we're not stuck. We increased our monies this year by 20%. We're giving $1.2 million away because we knock on wood. I'm going to knock on wood, had a great year last year. So, I was shocked, to be honest with you. I didn't know we had it in us to do it again. So this year's 1.2 million. So that means $300,000 a grant cycle. We just gave $300,000 away for our February cycle, and that was 28 families. And, the reason it's so important is that our grants are larger than everybody else. And that's not in a competitive factor. The reason we give larger grants is to have impact for these families who truly need help. If you're looking at the cost of adoption and you're like, I need a couple $1,000s to get to the finish line, you know what? You can probably figure that out. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry that it's stressful. I'm sorry that it is painful. I'm sorry that you're cutting something out of your budget or feel that you're really hurting to make that happen. But your child will come home. And believe me, no one enjoys writing these checks. I still have heart palpitations thinking about what I know.
I saw a screenshot in my phone the other day of like a $10,000 check that we willy-nilly just, at one that we, yeah. And even though you could write
painful. It's very painful what I spent to become a mom twice.
Yeah.
But we give grants up to $20,000 because the bottom line is this: average household average household income in our country is $54,000. Average adoption, and again, I think the average number, I would say 40 to 50, which is not an average number. It's an average range, is what I should change my wording. It's $40,000 to $50,000. Let's be honest. So if you're making 54 or 64 or even 74 as a household income, how are you going to do this? How are we going to make this possible? And the question I ask every single day is, if families can't afford to adopt, what happens to these children? Who wants to answer that question? Who wants to go tell all these kids around the globe who are already living and breathing
Mhm.
that they can't have a family because it's too expensive and people can't afford it? I'm not telling them. I'm going to go raise the money so that less children have to hear that. So we want to help these families who are maybe $5,000 short or $10,000 short or even $20,000 short, and really close the gap when it's a gap that is just, it's not feasible to close. It's just, I mean, any of us, I don't care, and if someone came to me and said, you need $20,000 in the next week, I'd have to dip into something like my kid's college account at this point. Like, I don't have that sitting around. People live within their means and they spend what they earn. And, it's just not, anyway, it's a very frustrating problem out there. I'm grateful we can offer a solution. We give money away 4 times a year. If you're listening to this and you think you need help or you know someone who might need help, send them to our website, helpusadopt.org, because everything's on there. We're so transparent in what we do. It's the best part about us. There's no secrets. We're, other grant organizations, they don't tell you how much they're giving away in a year. I want you to know we're giving away 1.2 million. I want you to know our average grant is $10,000 because I want to be transparent about our work.
And that's what I love and admire about you and your organization, is that what you see is what you get. You are very transparent when it comes to being in these Facebook groups. There are so many heart pounding, warming Facebook groups on potential adoptive families and current adoptive families. And there are stories that are just heartbreaking and heartwarming per se.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what you're there to provide them is factual information, the grant application links and whatnot. And I think it's great. And as a PR professional and nonprofit founder, I love the passion and work that you're doing through your innovative events and creative ways to really expand your reach. You have a social media ambassador team, a young professionals council. Can you talk about the need for thinking outside of the box as an executive director in this day and age?
I'm a businesswoman. My whole career, I have built things. I know how, and when we do in the nonprofit world have a profit every year, that's how we grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I go from $1 million to $1.2 million between last year and this year. I run this like a tight ship. We have a budget. We stick to the budget. We get as many people involved as possible. We try to expand our reach with everything we do. I tell people, this ain't your grandma's nonprofit. It's not. This is a different way of raising money. We do not do things the same as other nonprofits. And I know that's what attracts a lot of people. Our transparency is one of the best things we do, because when people give you money, they want to know whether it's $100 or $100,000. They're parting with their money because they think you can do something incredible with it. I wake up every day and my first sort of mindset is that I need to take care of my team that I employ. I have a very fierce responsibility to them. They rely on their jobs to keep a roof over their heads. It is not something I take lightly. So I take care of my team. Then I have a responsibility to the people and the children that we serve, that I need to go out and raise money so that I can build more families through adoptions, relieve this financial pain for families so they can enjoy being an adoptive parent, bring these kids home. And then my other group that I'm responsible to every day and take very seriously is our donors. Because without them, I'm dead in the water. It does not matter how good my idea is. If I'm not responsible to them, I have nothing. They're what keeps the machine going. So, half of what I do is, reporting to them, not just asking them for money. I can ask them for money. They expect that. What they don't expect is someone who checks in and says, guess what you helped us do last year? I'm not asking you for money today. I'm just coming to thank you and let you know what we did last year. And guess what? We're going to do it again and then some. And thank you for being part of this. We helped to build this many families last year. We're up to 608 since we started. Like, Next year, you know, in February, we built 28 families, and who knows what we're going to do in March or May. And then there's 2 more cycles after that. Like, so it's just, it's a different perspective, but I think that's because I'm a businesswoman first.
What are some common ways that businesses can encourage their employees to get involved by either volunteering their skills, ideas, and time to benefit helpusadopt.org, especially because of or ways that are not geographic to the work that you do?
One of the ways you and I are involved is social media, because practically everybody is on social media every single day of their life, period. And don't even try to tell me that you're not, because the green dot by your name, like, we all know you're on social media. So when you're like, I'm never on, of course you are. Or you should be if you're a parent, because you should be knowing what the heck is going on if your kids are on it. So that's a whole nother story. You don't have to like it. It's my love-hate thing in my life. But Facebook can be really amazing for my work. It's how I met you. It's how I met a ton of other people who are either involved in adoption or care about adoption. And so I created a social media ambassadors team. So if you're listening to this and you're like, Becky Fawcett, I have no money to give you. I'm not giving you a single penny, but I will give you 5 minutes every week. And it doesn't even take 5 minutes. So, and it's not even every week. So maybe every 2 weeks, I send an email to the social media ambassadors team, which is about 120 people. And I say, we just made this post on the Facebook page about this topic. Would you please share it and use this copy? Like, we make it so easy. This is a 30-second, if that, cut and paste job. Hit the share button, you're done. I cannot tell you what that does for us. People are like, that is helpful. That is, if I had 300 people doing that every 2 weeks, I'd be the luckiest person on the planet. It expands our reach. It helps find people who, the first and foremost thing with everything we do is who needs our help. Okay. So everybody's sharing it. And if you're in the adoption community somehow, you know other people who are behind you in line. It's the nature of the beast. So when you post about our work, you are saving someone else's life, literally, because you're all of a sudden giving them hope that they didn't have 5 minutes before they saw your post. They don't know about us for whatever reason. I mean, you were joking before we got on air that you didn't know about us back then. Like, so it's such a great way. It's free. I'm not asking you for a single penny. I'm asking you for 20 seconds of your time every 2 weeks.
It's really all about like user-generated content, and being a PR professional, and also in the work that I do, digital media, knowing the power of it. But many people often don't think the way that we think, and the power of it, and even just the simplicity of just share this post. And when you did send an email this week, you had copy and paste this, share the link, there you go. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna use my face for this one. And I hope you didn't mind, but I decided to get my phone out. I went ahead and did 20 seconds on an Instagram story linked to the grant cycle. And I just put it in my story. I didn't do it as a post. I just did it as a story this time. Yeah. And I had someone, a Facebook friend that I hadn't talked to in probably 7 years, message me and say, hey, how can I share this? It's just a story. So I downloaded it for him, sent it to him, and then he posted it to his followers. And it's like, it's as simple as that.
And it costs you nothing. You're already doing this. And I always tell people, like, okay, so get over the uncomfortable piece. I raise money for a living. I'm so sorry that makes you uncomfortable. It's a fact. And guess what? Every single business you're involved with in your life is raising money off you for a living, except you're thinking as a consumer. It's happening to you on a daily basis. But I'm raising this money for good. And if you can't give us money, and small donations, my phrase is every dollar counts. So don't sit here and think that we are disrespectful of small donations. If you knew how many small donations we have, you'd fall over. I'm giving you opportunities that don't involve money. You know, we have people who do peer-to-peer campaigns with us on Facebook, who do their birthday campaign for helpusadopt.org, and they raise $200. Again, if I had 100 people raising $200, strangers raising that for me, that's a lot of families at the end of the day.
Mhm,
I mean, and $200, everybody can raise $200. It's
mhm.
so easy on these Facebook things because people can give 10, 20, $50 and you're there before you know it. And so, and again, I'm asking you to lead the charge. I'm not asking you to write the check.
You have this beautiful Faces of Adoption campaign. Talk about
Ugh.
what that is.
So that's another great way you can be involved. Again, free, costs you no money, but you have to spend, that one might take you about 15 minutes to fill out the story. You need to do, have you done it
I
yet?
do. No, I need to. I need
You
to.
need to do it because you have a great story. So Faces of Adoption came about because we used to, at our events very early on, do these large blow up pictures of the faces of our kids that the families would send us. And I'm standing at an event before it's about to happen, and there's like 20 of these faces all over the room. And I go, this is probably like the organization started in 07. I think this was probably 09. And I'm like, God, look at these faces of adoption. And I'm like, so the next year we called the event Faces of Adoption. Took me a little bit to trademark it because I wasn't realizing what I was onto. And then, like everything else we do, we had to create an inclusive storybook campaign platform because there were story platforms out there, but you could only be part of it if you were an adoptee, or you could only be part of it if you were a birth mother, or you could only be part of it if you were this. And my whole thing is this: everybody's voice counts, period. Everybody can play in the sandbox together, period. So on our Faces of Adoption platform, we have adoptees, we have birth mothers, we have one birth father. I'm always looking for birth fathers if you know anyone who will share their story. We have older birth mothers, younger birth mothers, people with open adoption, adoptive parents. We have allies. There's one woman on there whose godchild is adopted. And she talks about how she's a face of adoption, even though she never thought about it before. It's just, we have someone who's best friend, an single adoptive mom and a child, like her best friend did a faces profile because she's like, I'm now a face of adoption because of all this. And, everything we do is inclusive, and we want these stories to be supportive. And some of them, there are some hard birth parent stories on there. There are some hard adoptee stories on there because we want to be honest about what happened in the past. A lot of work has gone into changing and making adoption more open and transparent. And I think some improvements have been made. But the voices of those that were wronged and hurt in past generations, they need to be heard out of respect for these human beings, who I'm on their side. They were robbed of some story, so that's a great way to submit your story as well. And again, no money.
When I think about the last over 15 years that you've been able to make adoption more feasible through grants and storytelling and just public consumption of what adoption is like for so many, what puts a smile on your face when you look at that work that you've been able to do?
It's, I was telling someone today that, I am aware of what I have created. I'm not done, first of all. So there's that. And I don't really think like that I'm that great. I think I had a good idea. I think I tell a good story. I think I have amazing people who believe in my idea. I think that what I have created is amazing. I think help it without, because I'm allowed to say that I'm not amazing. Help Us Adopt is amazing. Our equality stance is amazing. The amount of people that has attracted is amazing. The amount of people that have found us, the press that has covered our story in the last 16 years is remarkable. We've been on Today's Show, Good Morning America, CNN. We've been in People Magazine. We've been in USA Today, Wall Street Journal. I mean, why? Because we knew inclusion and equality was the right way to go 17 years ago. And people wanted it, and people needed it, and people wanted to talk about adoption. And I think what we have created is truly, truly great. And I'm so proud of who's involved. I'm so proud. And again, it's not always about money, as you've already mentioned. Like, I'm so proud of all these different avenues we've created for people to feel ownership of our work, because you can help without writing a check.
Once again, it's in the name. Where can people go to learn more, apply for grants, submit their story for Faces of Adoption, support your efforts through volunteering, either through social media or through corporate donations? Where can people go to learn more about your organization?
Helpusadopt.org.
Becky, you are a change maker and are once again literally helping so many families have the opportunities to grow theirs through the power of adoption. Thank you so much for everything you do, you and your team, and thank you for coming on the show.
Andrew, it's so fun, and I can't wait to meet you in person someday.
Absolutely.